Good morning, Peacock. Here we are again. Oh my God, we're like on podcast fire, girl.
Yes, we sure are, and I love it.
I know. So today we are recording episode 18, and we are here having a conversation with Monica Rivera from You Want to Do What? That's how I say it in my mind. I hope you know that. In my mind, it sounds like that. You want to do what? You wanna do what? I just can't read it any other way. But just to present to you our guest today, she is a personal branding, marketing, and business coach, and also a great speaker. We've been in conversation already with Monica Rivera related to our business, but we were able to see her speak at Your First Million. She was a speaker there, and she was phenomenal. And thank you so much for giving us the time to set some time aside to chat with us while we were there. It was such a great feeling to talk to you face to face and not just via email. But welcome to our podcast, Monica.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I love the way you say the name of it. So it's interesting. I'm from New York. So when I came up with the title, the way I talk to myself is very, as you would imagine a New Yorker does. So you want to do what? A little bit more aggressive. And it's interesting when I meet other people around the country. Some people, you want to do what? And they say it with such excitement in their voice. I'm like, oh, you grew up in such a healthy way. That's so sweet. Because I can just tell by how they say it what their upbringing was like.
That's so funny that you bring that up. Like, I never even imagined, because like Sandy said, I'm like, you want to do what? It's always like a doubt, right? And then like, you
Yes.
want to do what? It just dawned on me that there's different ways that people can say it, and it means totally the opposite, which
Yes, the
I
first
think,
time someone said it to me, it was a man in Ohio, and he had such an upbeat, excited tone, and I thought, "Well, that's not how I meant it at all when I first came up with the name," but it's lovely that that's how you interpret it.
I love it. I love it. Monica, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So, I am a personal brand strategist, a business coach, and a speaker. And what that all really means is that I help people turn their expertise, their skills, and their talents into revenue. I'm a strong believer that we all have a story, we all have a set of expertise that goes well beyond our job title. And I help people tell that story and find different ways to monetize it.
Oh
That's
my
awesome.
goodness. Let me just highlight the fact that you said we all have expertise that goes well beyond our titles. That I want to blow up, bold, and splash, because that is what we have found in our journey, right? So Sandy and I come from a public service background. We did I say our time, it sounds horrible that way, but we've done our time. We served, we retired, and it's really hard to realize one day that you no longer have a title. I'm no longer Anna, the director of blah, blah, blah. Sandy's no longer the administrator of blah, blah, blah. I mean, we're no longer a public service employee, right? And so we really have taken what you just said to a whole other level. And what we're trying to do is encourage other individuals to do the same. And when we met you, the whole thing of you want to do what? It's just there's so many ways of doing that, but the fact that you help individuals figure that out, that is a value that everyone needs. Everyone needs a Monica, because Sandy and I, we had each other, right? We always say our story about our peacock. I don't know if you're familiar with how we came up with the name. Did we tell you that? Okay,
You
so
did. Hmm.
we had each other as support, right? But not everybody gets to explain that or even understands that they are much more without a title. Like, there's so much more value they have without that title, and you help them step into it. So tell us, like, what is your ideal, not ideal, but what kind of individuals do you work with? I mean, I imagine there's going to be a variety from different stages of life, right?
Absolutely. So I work with mid career professionals, solopreneurs, founders of companies and startups and things of that nature to work with unearthing what their story is, being able to feel comfortable with sharing their story. Because a lot of times people hear personal brand and they think, I don't want to have all my business out on the internet. It's not about having your business out all over the internet. It's about having the 3 to 5 stories that really connect with not just the people you want to help, but also the opportunities you want to align with. And so it's about extracting those. And I actually say it's the opposite of sharing everything on the internet, because what it is, if I tell you a story and I talk about I was driving someplace and my car broke down and I had a flat tire and I missed my doctor's appointment, that's very relatable. We've all had situations where things have gone wrong and we've ended up someplace late. Now, if I start adding in all these details of things that happened, well, now we actually lose that relatability between each other because it's too detailed. That it's like, oh, this is not really my experience. And then we start to miss that connection. So when we're talking about personal brand, it's ways to use our stories to connect with other people, but not so much that then they think you're telling a memoir. And that's not what it's about.
Absolutely. It isn't about the memoir. It's more about telling who you are, right? And you don't want to go down memory lane, but identify those big, the moments that make the most impact. And I think that, the fact that you have an array of different professional levels is huge, because people think, well, when do I need a coach like this? Like, you need a coach at any given time, because we're transitioning, we're going through different stages of our lives. And so for me, I just thought it was just genius and just absolute perfection of how you've distilled this concept into bite-sized lessons, I guess, if for lack of a better word. But when you said you want to do what, your presentation literally says you is a first step, one is a second step, third is a do step, right? So you have very understandable and digestible ways of doing it. But I want you to explain to our audience, how is it that you break these steps down for them?
Absolutely. So, first, I just want to say think of it as almost your digital resume. So, for example, I have clients who will say, I have this wonderful opportunity, but when they go to Google me or they looked on my LinkedIn, I still have an egg for a profile picture. I don't have a background. I haven't updated it in the past 5 years. And so, again, this is your digital footprint. So, what are people finding about you when they look online? Are they finding anything? Have you been on any podcast appearances? So it's really kind of about thinking of that holistic view of what it is. And I always say one of the first questions I ask everybody when they were a guest on my podcast is, tell me about some of the other commas after your name. Because to your point, we lead always with our job titles. But our job title, as we see all the time, can go away in an hour. And then who are we beyond that? And specifically here in the US, so much of our identity is tied to what it is that we do that we really start to lose connection with the other things that make us ourselves. And even the identity beyond being a mom or being a wife and all of these other things, there's so much more to it. And so, how can we connect to some of those things? So, I just wanted to start by saying that.
I think that's, you hit it right on the nail.
So
Sandy, you were going to say something?
yesterday I went to, my mom had surgery, and then I went to take her to breakfast. And the waitress, very young, she says to my mom, "Oh, is she your only daughter?" And my mom's like, "Oh, yes." And she said, "Oh, because I have one baby, she's 6, and I'm trying to, kind of figure out if I want to have another baby." Okay. And I was like, "Oh, okay." She says, "Because I think about when she grows up, what am I going to do?" And I said, "Well, there's more to your identity than being a mother and being a wife." And when I said that to her, she kind of looked at me like, "What?" And I'm like, "Why am I walking around, IHOP telling people exactly, right?" But I said, "You're so young, but there's more to life than that. Like, think about all the things you want to do in life and don't stick to that. Those are titles that we have earned, given ourselves, taken." I said, "But before you were a wife, before you were a daughter, and before you were someone's mother, you were this little girl that had dreams. So why don't you go back and tap into that person and think about all the great things you wanted to do, and then think about those things." And she was like, "Oh my God, I never thought about it." But it comes back to what we were talking about, our titles. All our lives we've been programmed. You have to go to school. You got to get a job. You got to do this.
Yeah.
And always this one step ahead of the other, on top of the other. And then when that's all gone, so you're so far ahead that you forgot who you were. And so you're right. You take forever to get to this point in your life. It could be done in an hour, in a day, whatever. And then it's back to the drawing board. So I think that the conversations have to be made way before you get to that point where it's stripped from you, or before, you don't have control, unfortunately, to have that, to have a plan B. Because, I think it's really, really important as women who, and I think I see it more and more with the women that we're meeting. This is like an ongoing thing. I feel like I thought it was just me and Anna. And then as we are meeting women, this is a very common situation.
Absolutely. If you've ever watched, so confession, I love reality competition shows. And so if it's competing on food or Survivor or Amazing Race or whatever those things are, and often if you listen to it, you'll hear a lot of the women say, I'm doing this for my kids, I'm doing this for someone else. And you never hear the men say anything like that. And this is not about bashing men, but there's this thing of, I can't just take ownership of winning this $1 million prize on Survivor because I sat on an island for the past 36 days or 26 days, however long it is. There's still like it's indebted to someone else. And it's okay for us to hold that win and experience that moment and explore the hobbies or want to get the promotion or want to start our own business for us. It doesn't always have to be because I want to make someone else proud. It's okay to make yourself proud. You are worthy of that accolade.
I love to listen to exactly, I mean, this whole conversation in itself, because I think we're, Sandy and I talk about this a lot. Like we're making changes. We're already in our 50s. We're just realizing, but it come with events in our lives that have brought us to this point, right? But to hear the earlier generation, the younger generation of making these changes and knowing, yeah, that there's other ways of doing this, to me, that's what makes us really happy, because then we're cutting down the time that we're wasting. And I don't like to say that we wasted it having a career or going to school or anything like that, but we still could have made a little bit more of an opportunity had we known a little younger. I don't know if things would have moved. I don't know if how they would have turned out, but things happen for a reason, and they happen, at the time it's supposed to. But when we get to meet other women, other entrepreneurs, and you're speaking and we're like, this is exactly what we're talking about when we're going on our trips and we see these women and they start to discover, we're like, it's a spark, right? And that's the spark that we're moving, that's what we try to do. And that's, the whole conversation about how do we get our message out is reinventing yourself. There's a million ways to reinvent yourself. We happen to do it to travel because we love to travel. I think putting yourself in another environment that's outside of your comfort zone is, stretching yourself. But I think that there's so much to be said for individuals that provide this support in leading them there. And Monica, what you provide is exactly that. And that you can share this with people at different ages. I mean, I can see this also helping students in school, to kind of open up their eyes.
Absolutely.
And it's like, you want to do what? You want to get, how are we going to do this? And you get it down in little bite size. So for us, it's just confirmation that what we started, the ideas that we're brewing in our head and that now are unfolding, are exactly what it's supposed to be doing.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And absolutely, I think from when we think about kids and we think about students in school, how are they thinking about designing their life? And it's important for, I think, us to instill in any of the younger people in our lives that a career is just one slice of the things that you're going to be able to do, but also being able to be expansive and know that the one thing you choose, you're not stuck in mud. You can actually change it. You can add more things to it. You can take things away from it. I think one of the great things that has happened that we may have not had those same opportunities as we were growing up because it was a different time, but the world has become a lot smaller because of social media. So we have access to having conversations like this. Maybe we would have never met otherwise. We can have connections to people that live in other parts of the world. I remember for me growing up in the Bronx, if I had a friend who lived in Brooklyn, that felt like miles and miles and millions of miles away because the Bronx to Brooklyn just felt so absurd that we were going to take multiple tolls to potentially get there. Like it just felt very absurd. And now here we are having conversations with other people in the world simply by getting on a Zoom call. And so all of those things I think are really important to think about, that the possibilities that exist now for us were not always present before, but because they are now, let's take advantage of them. And that can happen at any age.
So, can you tell us, Monica, how you got started down this awesome business that you have? Like, what happened in your life or in your career that you decided, I have to do this for myself? And then in turn, I'm going to be able to help women as well, other women as well.
I thank you for asking that. So, I think it goes back to even choosing my career. So, one of the things that I did share in the event where we met in person is that I lost my parents at an early age. And because of that, I made a lot of choices for my career, for my life. So, when I think back on my career, I began my career and made my career choices truly out of necessity and survival. So my parents had passed away when I was 16 and 22.
Oh my
And
God, I'm so sorry.
thank you. And so losing them and also my biological family in between those 7 year period that I had, I made a lot of choices based off of there's not a couch for me to sleep on. I don't have a parent's home or a grandparent's home to go to. So I just did what I needed to do, which is find a job in the areas where I thought I was going to be paid well. And for me, that was corporate America. And so it began by climbing the corporate ladder. And just very similar, the higher I go on the corporate ladder, the more I'll make money. And then that will give me the safety that I'm looking for because I don't have all these, the family and the systems and all these other things behind me. And I got to a point in my career where I realized, what if I just stopped for a moment to assess where I am? Because the thing is, when you're in survival mode, it's very easy to stay in survival mode for a prolonged period of time without actually stopping to see, am I actually safe? And when I did that assessment for myself, I realized like I've done this, like I'm okay, like I've been able to take care of myself. And that freed up like a totally, it was almost as if unlocking a different room in my brain of where I thought, now I have some more choices. I have some more options here. And a funny thing happened is that when I went back to work, really with this enlightened moment, I started to think, I don't know if I really love it here. And so I just began noticing different things because now I had this awareness of, I don't have to necessarily do this forever. I do have more options than I thought. And once that feeling started to grow, it then began to feel like if I was wearing clothes that don't fit, you know, when you've kind of started to gain weight and you're like, this coat doesn't feel the same and it's a little tight in the underarms and I can't quite close it anymore. That's how it started to feel, as if I was wearing clothes that didn't fit. And so I went through this period of trying to figure out, well, what's the thing? What am I going to do? I've always had a bunch of interests. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing because it makes it very hard to decide what is the thing you're going to do. And then finally, it all came down to a decision. Make a decision and make the decision work. And for me, that was podcasting. I entered podcasting back in 2017 with this idea of I just want to speak about personal development because I was going through my own awakening, if you will, not to sound too woo, of figuring out what else was there for me outside of the survival mode. And that just set me on this course of meeting incredible people in the industry and asking questions to people that were much smarter than me and much more experienced than the areas that I had been in before. And from there, I just kept building a new ladder for myself. And it opened up all of these possibilities. And that's where it's taken me now.
I think that's absolutely. I think this is absolutely beautiful. The fact that you unlocked, and that's, you see, and this is what your gift is, Monica. That for what I'm seeing, that you describe the action that needs to take place in things that are very relatable to folks. 20, 30 years ago, we've always been in survival mode. We were told, get yourself the career, the job with the steady paycheck and the healthcare. We did all that. Check, 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 check. Never stopping to figure out what else is possible and unlocking that. So you really, in essence, is you're giving the key to folks to be able to unlock all these other possibilities. Like, what is it that you enjoy doing? Because we get lost in that shuffle of, we have an expectation that was imposed on us because these are the job duties we have to do, and we have to be this title and we have to act this way. And here you're saying unlock that and look to see what else you can do. And as you're moving, you're building, you created, you said it yourself. You've been doing podcasting since 2017. God bless you, because Sandy and I have been doing podcasting since this year. When did we start? Maybe last year?
No, last year. Last year.
Last year. And this is not, we don't come from this world. We did a little bit of everything, in what we used to do, but podcasting, social media was not part of, the public sector. And, they're just playing catch up. So we had to do like a crash course of learning how to do all of this stuff. We're actually really proud of it. We're like, you know what? For not knowing from ground baseline was 0 to now, I'm like, we actually have killed it. Like, and we just keep creating, but it's exactly that. We wouldn't have figured this out had we not taken this route. And the fact that we get to one point and then there's another door that opens. And I tell Sandy, wow, every time there's another door open, it opens up a whole other world. Never did we imagine starting with a cultural and social immersion program for our students that were our kids, thinking that there has to be other kids that could benefit from this because we all went through COVID together. And our kids happen to be the ones that, unfortunately had junior and senior years in their rooms. There has to be other kids having to go through this. Piloting it with them, doing a second round, fine-tuning things to now being able to say, we are now sponsoring 5 students that we didn't know last year, that we just opened up a door, partnered up with a nonprofit, and bam, we have 5. Like, our vision is now a reality. It's come to fruition. None of this would have happened had we not unlocked that. And
that's remarkable.
See, that's what we're like, when I listen, I'm like, there was so much connection with you when I just sat there like just an I'm like, she made it so relatable. And I want our followers, our listeners to know it can be done. It doesn't have to go from 0 to 100. We're going to take baby steps. Like, first remove certain hats, remove the expectations, peel those layers back, which is kind of everything that we've gone through. We just didn't know there was a whole framework, and here you are delivering it in a nice little package. It's like just one thing at a time. So Monica, like, this is huge.
Yes, and I just want to say what you're doing and the work that you're doing is so expansive for so many people, because the very first part of it is not only are you creating this and showing the possibility to other people, but what happens when you step into action is that you unlock the belief as well. And so there's always going to be part of us. If you have the idea in your head of, oh, I wish I could travel here, or I wish I could speak on stages, I'd like to start my own podcast, there's that little bit of belief that you think you could do it, but you're not quite sure. Once you start taking the action, that's another level that's unlocked if your belief gets stronger in yourself. And then you say, well, if I could do that, what else can I do? And that's the power of actually stepping into trying new things and allowing yourself and giving yourself the permission to do something that you haven't done before, because it is expansive on this other level that I can articulate and you can articulate, and you can share with people all the amazing testimonies that you have. But until people experience it, you can't describe that feeling. It's almost as if visiting the Grand Canyon. The photos do not do the same justice as when you are there and you are looking at it. And to me, I feel it's the same thing. When you start stepping into your power, I can tell you how great it's going to be, but when you see it for yourself, it is a game changer.
And I was just going to
100%.
say, like, what kind of advice would you give
Yes.
women who are feeling guilty about even thinking about, opening a door for the possibilities? Because that's what we come across. We've got women who are in our age group who are like, oh, but I only have 15 years to go. And I'm thinking, only? A lot can happen between now and 15 years. Like, that's a long time. And for you to already have planned out the next 15 years to be stuck doing something that you don't like, and it's not your, dream, how do you encourage these women and give themselves permission to open the door?
I love this question because I always say I'm never the coach that is going to tell you to quit your job. I personally feel like that is irresponsible. I don't know your circumstances. I don't know who else you take care of. I don't know your health level of you may need these benefits and all of these things. But what I will encourage you to do is just open up a single door to try and experiment. So the same way when kids are reluctant to go into the pool or step into the ocean because it's cold, what do we try to encourage them to do? Just get their feet wet. It's the same thing for us. We just forget these lessons. We already know these lessons. But as we get older, what happens is we start building more fears. And these fears create walls and perimeters around our lives and also these possibilities. So when I think about guilty, the question that I would ask, and the question I do ask my clients, is if we fast forward 20 years from now and you didn't do the thing you wanted to do, what would that 20-year in the future version tell you? Would you
Mm.
feel any level of regret? Would you feel remorse? Would you think, oh, I wish I would have done that? But like, let's think about that person. And what do you owe to that person to actually try, to actually just give it a go, not make this huge radical shift, but just to try? Because we would tell the loved ones in our lives to give it a try. The older version of us would tell us to give it a try, but there's just something here that is keeping us stuck. But it really, I'm telling you, the antidote is action. The antidote to all of our fears and our doubts truly comes from action.
Do.
Yes. Because
You
when
know,
you're
that's
doing,
that.
you're not thinking about it, right? When you're
Yeah.
doing, you're actually in the moment and you're applying the things. I'm not thinking about swimming. I am swimming. I'm not thinking about going on the plane. I'm on the plane right now. I'm not thinking about the talk. I'm giving the talk. So all of those things, you're no longer in thinking mode. You're actually in action.
So I think that that is huge. I was listening to the master class for I forget her name. I'm just gonna blame it on menopause. But the lady who invented Spanx,
Oh,
she
Sarah
said,
Blakely. Hmm.
yeah, Sarah Blakely. She said, I didn't tell anybody what I wanted to do or what I was going to do because I didn't want everyone's, right? Everyone's ideas, negativity, all their fears to be imposed on me because immediately they're going to be like, "Oh, are you crazy? You're going to quit your job?" She said she was the best fax machine seller there was, which I mean already says a lot, right? But I thought to myself, this is so crazy. Like, absolutely. And I think that she gives great advice. Do not tell anybody what you want to do because all the naysayers are
Yes.
going to roll up in a limo and tell you how it just sounds like a crazy idea. No one's going to do it. So I think that um, that's great advice. And would you say that you feel the same way?
Absolutely. So I will say one thing to know is that even the naysayers have this reframe. Naysayers can only see as far as their limitations. So I'm going to say that again. Naysayers can only see as far as their limitations. So
Yes.
their vision is not your vision. So they are only seeing it what they feel they can do in their own lives. And so I give them grace because it's not really about us, it's about their own thoughts of what
Hmm.
they feel is available to them. So that's one. Secondly, I completely echo what Sarah Blakely says because any big decision I've made in my life, I have asked no one for their opinion. When I started the podcast in 2017, I had 3 episodes out before I told anyone in my life that I had a podcast. When I bought my place, which was almost 14 years ago, I did not tell anyone that I moved to a whole new state until I actually had signed the paperwork and I had the keys. I did not want anybody else's opinion on it, not because I don't value other people's opinion, but because ultimately the success or the risk rested on my shoulders. And because of that, it needed to be a decision that I felt comfortable with, and I didn't necessarily need anyone else to feel comfortable with it.
Absolutely. I think that I think that's everything in life, right? Like I always long time ago, I used to be married and my mom used to give me marital advice, but my mom is not married. My mom is single. And I finally told her, I said, Mommy, I don't want advice because I don't want to end up like you. Like, so you don't get advice from people who haven't been through what you've been through, right? Like, if I'm going to ask advice, I'm going to ask Mark Cuban. Like, what do you think? You think this is a good idea? Because I'm trying to strive for something different. And if I'm going to take advice from someone who's been there, is already there, or exceeded that. So I think that sometimes you're right. You do it because you want affirmation or you want someone to say, oh my God, that's great, do it. But unfortunately, a lot of the times, it doesn't come back that way. They're like, ay, Dios mío, you're going to leave your job. Oh my God, what about the benefits? You make great money.
Yes.
I get it. And it's not about quitting your job, but it's about opening the door that's going to lead you to do something that you love that could possibly free you from the 9 to 5 or from dealing with that toxic boss, whatever it is, right? Because to live and to work somewhere that for a fact is just not something that makes you happy, it's just, I can't even fathom the idea. I got into an Uber once and this kid asked me, what do you do for a living? And I said, oh, well, I'm a public servant, but I also own an insurance agency, which I have for the last 15 years. And he said, oh, do you love insurance? I said, no, I love money.
That part.
I
Mm-hmm.
said, I didn't wake up one day and be like, oh, I can't wait to be an insurance agent. No, that's not the way it works. But it's another stream of income for me and my family that, it's doable. It works. Get it done. It comes in. So for him to be, he was young though. He was going into I want to do stuff that I love. I get
Mm-hmm.
it. But sometimes you got to tap into another career first so you can pay the bills and then move into what you love. Unless you're very lucky and you figure it out at a very young age, kudos to you. But that's the issue, right? Like,
But sometimes you do love money, and that's okay. It's just about thinking what's your method to get there, right? And so when I think about even helping people build their personal brand, it's about what are some other revenue streams for you. So is it going to be speaking? Is it going to be writing? Is it going to be training? Is it going to be consulting? Is it going to be, even if you have a business on the side, how can we put rocket fuel on that business so that you have additional income? And so when I say that to people about money, some people, oh, she wants to talk about money as if it's a negative thing. The
No.
reason I talk about money is because when I watched my family pass away, I got to hear the things that they wish they would have done, but they put off until retirement came, or until they had more money, or until they had this. I had a very close view from as early as 15 years old to hear about what people who were dying wished that they would have done.
yeah, of course.
And if I can use my skills, which is business, marketing, public speaking, to help people have income so they can take the vacation, so that they can live more of their experiences now and not tomorrow, then that's how I'm using my gifts. So when I say it's about the money, it's what the money gives you access to, and the money gives you experiences to do.
Absolutely. It's
That is
it's
so
it's a
insightful.
game changer.
It's a game
Absolutely.
changer. It's a game changer. Again, unlocking those pieces that, and you said it, unfortunately and fortunately, you got to experience that at 15.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you saw, we all experience different things at 15, but you were able to capture it and then develop it moving forward. And that to me is just, the possibilities. We talk, like you said, money is not always a topic that people want to talk about because it's either there's a negative connotation, there's a scarcity connotation. But when you put it in a sense where like money provides you the opportunities to make choices, that right there is switching it already. And it's even starting from that beginning because you're dispelling the old way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's like for our generation, that was very much instilled with us. Like, make it last and, make sure that you have, crumbs, whatever it was, because that's what
Mm-hmm.
we had to do. But
Yeah.
now it's like, do you understand the possibility that there's so many ways to make money? That's another thing that you have to break through people. It's not just one job like we were told. Like there was no way 10 years ago I would have been lost in this conversation because I wouldn't comprehend knowing what it meant to have a side job in addition to a side something in addition, like that was not, I was focused and dedicated to what I did and that was it. And I don't regret doing the public service that I did, but I now not realize it. Like had I opened up that box a little earlier, things probably would have changed. But now that I can actually share with people that are still looking at us now we're getting a lot of questions. How did you guys do this? How at this age, right? Like I know we're not old, but we're in the older generation. People don't tend to reinvent themselves at this age. And so I'm starting to realize like, wait a minute, like we have something here. And
Mm.
you have to go out and live life. And how you choose to do it is really, however you want. But find those people, find Monica, find the travel, find people that are going to support you in making that, unlocking those keys.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think, it just, there's so much to be said about, keeping an open mind and putting yourself in situations where you're going to get these exposures. Sandy and I, when we were going to your first million, like we had met Arlen 2 years ago. And actually, to be honest with you, where we met, it was at a Bra Network conference, and Arlen was a speaker. And that was the first time that I had heard her story. And I thought to myself, the tenacity that she had to keep going, to push, regardless of the fact that she was sleeping at the San Francisco airport. She kept pitching and pitching, and no one would listen till she found the one person that was going to, invest in her. She didn't even have the bank account at the moment. She's like, hold on, let me go, but it's like things happen for a reason. And when we went to Your First Million to be exposed, she gave the platform to so many great speakers. But the more important thing, and the thing that you all had in common, was the relatability. Is that a word? Relatability to your audience, that you made it seem as this is you. You were talking to you. You were talking to me. You were talking to everybody individually, because everything that you said connects to every individual out in the audience. And to give them the opportunity that I'm giving you a key and I'm going to show you how to unlock it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That's one of the highest compliments to hear that it felt as if I was speaking directly to you, because I really was. I think everyone in that room, regardless of the level that they entered the room in, still has the possibility to expand beyond that. And there's ways to do it. And my way of teaching is to make it relatable, is to not have it feel like this is impossible or only for some people. It's about making sure that everyone believes it's accessible to them. Because one of the great things, as you mentioned with Arlen, she talks about her story. And we all have a story. And many of us, at least in my experience, have been told growing up to hide our story, because a lot of it is about assimilating. And so we're encouraged to assimilate. And where we are now, and the great thing about where we are now, and there's negatives to where we are now, but one of the things that I use to hold on to the positive is that our stories are actually rewarded, because they're the exact thing that builds connection. They not only build connection, but they build opportunities. So Arlen telling her story isn't going to connect with everyone, but guess what? She's also not trying to connect with everyone. And that's the important piece. She has this great thing of be yourself, so the people who want to know you can find you. And that's the exact thing that I do with my clients. How can you be more of yourself? How can you be willing to share more of yourself so you can find these opportunities, so you can connect to these communities and sell your services or speak to them or somehow provide additional support based off of who you are. And it's a different paradigm than we're looking at a job and saying, okay, well, I have Excel and I have this skill and that skill, and it kind of seems like a match, so let me apply. This really is a complete paradigm shift of how we're approaching new opportunities.
I love it. I love it. Can I ask you a behind the scenes question?
Of course.
So, we're talking about unlocking, and we're talking about putting ourselves in, situations that are going to bring us opportunities. But I always like to know, part of the connecting is sharing the behind the scenes stuff. So Sandy and I, when we're recording, sometimes we want it to look picture perfect, like nothing's wrong. And what we realize is that when we share with others, like the behind, how many takes it takes to do a reel, people crack up and they realize, like, we're human. We're just like anybody else. But can you share with us, like, what was your journey in pitching to speak at Find Your First Million? Like, did you know you were going to go in there? Did you have it all set up? Was it picture perfect? What were the things that, came naturally? And what were the things that kind of made you stretch a little bit more, if there were any? That type of stuff.
Well, the biggest thing that actually made me stretch was the very day of delivering my talk, because I had landed in LA and I had a fever and I was completely laid out. When I had gotten to the hotel, it was a little before 12. And check-in usually isn't until about 3 or 4 p.m. And the man just must have taken so much mercy, because I looked like I was at death's door. And I rebuked that, because I wasn't. I'm still here. But I do say that to say that I was down for the count. And so he gave me some bottles of water, which was another thing. These hotels don't give you anything for free. He gave me bottles of water. He let me check in early. And I immediately went upstairs and just went to sleep. I hadn't eaten for over 24 hours when I gave the talk, because I couldn't hold anything down. I was completely exhausted. And what's worse is that I couldn't take any medication or cold medication, because cold medications, what they have a tendency to do is I lose my voice when I take them.
Oh
And
no.
so, of course, I can't risk the chance of losing my voice. So I felt awful all leading up to it. And I just kept saying a prayer. I need to just be able to deliver this talk and do this. But up until that very moment, I had tissues in my pocket of the jumpsuit that I was wearing. My nose kept running, but there was something about I walked onto that stage, and I kid you not, and it's never happened quite this way. When I stepped onto the stage, the man said, "We're going to introduce you as the voice of God." And I thought, well, that's like an interesting way to say it, but it meant like overhead. So someone wouldn't walk out and introduce me, it would come from the system. And when I stepped out, I felt this calm just go across me, and everything just cleared. And I felt so connected and so lockstep with the message that I was delivering and looking people in the eye as much as you can with the bright lights. And then when I got off the stage, I had adrenaline for about the first 20 minutes that were keeping me going. Like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. I feel so much better. Once that adrenaline left my body, I was right back to it, blowing my nose, feeling so sick. The only thing that could change is that now I could finally take cold medicine because I had given my talk. So it was okay. If I lose my voice now, then I'll just write notes to people that want to chat with me. But yeah, just that in and of itself was a very tough experience before getting on the stage.
Wow, Monica. Well, I can tell you right now, no one could tell that you were not feeling 100%. You delivered that like a champ. Everything was exactly, I mean, it was impactful. All checks. I
Thank you.
mean,
I really appreciate that.
but
I
I
didn't
loved
know
it.
that I didn't know that adrenaline dried up your nose. It's good to know.
It did, yeah. So, I mean, just put yourself in a very high stakes situation when you're feeling sick and you'll knock it right out for at least 40 minutes.
Well, see, and there you go. That's what it is. And this is a real story that
Mhm.
happened, when individuals are thinking like it has to be perfect. It's not always going to be perfect. You just have to learn how to maneuver around these things, and you dance right through it. So that major kudos, because you're
And
right.
I'll also share even prior to that. So we were told that the clock had broken. So we didn't know how much time we had. We were given a certain amount of time, but we didn't know how much time was actually left. The gentleman on the side said, "I'll wave a flashlight when you have about 5 minutes." And so I could see the flashlight, and I just very gently kind of nodded, like, "Okay, I see you. You can stop with the flashlight." We didn't have a monitor to be able to see what our slides look like. So that was another thing. And there were just challenges. We didn't get to see the stage ahead of time. So there were these technical
You see,
things that were also happening behind the scenes. And I also didn't get to rehearse as much as I had hoped to rehearse. But it was a talk that I was meant to deliver. And that is the message that I'm trying to share, is that when you're talking from your truth and what you're actually living, you don't need slides. You don't need everything to go well because it's not fabricated. You're not just creating a talk for the sake of just getting money. You're actually creating the talk that you live every day, and that made it a lot easier.
Yeah,
all I
I've
can say
seen
is wow.
situations when, right, when you have all these things set up to talk, you got out your cards, and then you don't even look at the cards. You literally just go with what you know and what you're delivering. Like the cards were there just as a security blanket, but you
Hmm.
know your stuff, you know what's coming from your heart, you know what you're delivering to your audience. So thank you so much for sharing
Do
that
you have
story.
time for a quick funny story?
Yeah.
Sure.
So back in March, I was delivering a workshop, and it was an hour-long workshop, and they had miscounted the amount of breakout rooms that they had. So I delivered my talk simultaneously while someone was delivering their talk in the same room. So we had two different audiences, two different talks, and we had to do it at exactly the same time. No barrier, nothing. And so the other women and I, we just chatted and said, all right, well, this is kind of a terrible situation, but we just need to make sure we're mindful of our voice. She
Yeah.
was a much louder speaker than I was, which is fine when because she's normally talking to lots of people all the time. And so we were just very respectful of each other. And I just turned in my direction to the right, and she turned to her direction to the left. And we just laser focused in on the people that were there to hear our particular topic. But that was another really tough environment that had happened not too many weeks before.
Oh,
I,
I'm
I
just
don't know if
I'm
I
just
could control
thinking
my volume.
that number one, the volume, and number two, the background noise. I would have been that. I mean,
Talk about laser
Wow.
focus. You got to be laser
Laser
Yeah.
focused or
focus.
something like that. Oh my God. So thank you so much, Monica, for sharing that, because it really does allow people to understand that sometimes you have to shift. Sometimes things are
Hmm.
not, don't go as planned, and it's not the end of the world. And that's something that Anna and I always try to teach people, that, things happen, but it doesn't mean that it's done, that it's over. It doesn't require for you to get upset. It doesn't require for you to fall apart. You don't have to cry. It's just you need to shift. I mean, in our travels, we've gone through things. I lost my passport in Rome. We lost the key to the
Hmm.
rental car. Like, things have happened, and we literally just allow ourselves, I don't know, about 2.2 seconds to have like a little freak out, and then we just kind of move on, because you had to validate your feelings at that moment. I think I shed a
Right.
tear. I think I shed one tear when my passport was gone, and then I was like, all my stamps are gone. Okay, no,
Oh,
let's move it
yes,
on.
the stamps. You're so right.
But
Hmm.
the great, so
But
you can't really be so upset, because you still have to keep going. And I did pray to my grandma, and someone turned in my passport. That's the end of the great story. Yes, I know, terrible
Oh,
story in the
that's
beginning,
wonderful.
beautiful at the end. But again, you don't have time to be like, pues se acabó todo, ya se jodió la fiesta, and I'm done, and I'm just gonna go home.
Right.
No, you just got
Right.
to keep going.
Mhm.
So, and in that situation that you were in, where you had to share that breakout room, that could have developed a relationship with the other speaker if you didn't know her, right?
Mhm.
To become friends and to collaborate in any future projects. Things happen for a reason.
Absolutely, and it did just that because, I mean, there were so many people there that day, and it's easy for us to kind of remember each other a little bit by face, but not exactly what the other person does. But when you were in one room together and making the situation work, and we delivered 2 workshops, so we had to do this 2 times, so it was 2 hours total of
Oh,
being in
wow.
that same space. We absolutely bonded, and so it was a great experience. She's a great woman, and yeah, we always have that connection between us now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to ask you two questions. The first one is, what's your next trip?
Oh my gosh, I need you ladies to help me get to my next trip. I have the trips that I dream of that then I talk myself out of because I end up working a lot and building this business and growing this business. But what is my next trip? So, my niece graduates kindergarten in June, and I'm hoping to take her on like a little tiny getaway for her. So, one of the things that was really great is I asked her what she wanted. She said she wanted to go someplace, which was wonderful because it really lit my heart up because I love travel. And I was hoping she didn't want just another toy to I want to go back to Portugal. And while I'm there, maybe I'll pop into Spain because it's close enough.
And the next one is, where can our listeners find you?
Absolutely. So my website is You Wanna Do What. So it's spelled WANNA. So You Wanna Do What. It's the same name if you look for me over on Instagram and you like spending time there. And then for LinkedIn, I would say find me there because I do spend a lot of time, but it is so hard to find a Monica Rivera on LinkedIn because there are so many of us. So if you ladies wouldn't mind putting it in the show notes, if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn, they're able to do that. But I would encourage anybody who's felt motivated or inspired or even activated by this conversation to please book a discovery call. It's absolutely free so we can explore the idea of coaching together so that you can start to not just build your personal brand, but also market yourself so that you can have those opportunities so that then you can go on these amazing trips with Two Peacocks Travel.
Yes, of course. And thank you so much. And we're so excited to have you on our podcast and really just shed all this great advice, all this great information, and really giving permission. Women, I mean, a lot of the people who listen to us are women, but also men, right? Give permission to really step out of their comfort zone and think about things on a whole different perspective. And that you are available also to answer any questions or help them fulfill their dreams. Giving them permission to move forward and accomplish those things that they've been sitting in the back of their mind. And now they've got somebody who is there to listen, coaching, and preparing them for their next stage in life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to meet with both of you again.
Oh, thank you so much, Monica. We're looking forward to seeing you at the next event. Actually, in the next travel, because we're going to take you. It's really important. But thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. And we really look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Um, Thank you. So everyone, please follow us on Instagram, _Peacocks_Travel. We're also on the website, www.2Peacocks Travel. Make sure you look us up. We've got some great trips coming up. We've got our trip to Peru, Machu Picchu in August. We've got Dia de los Muertos in Oaxaca, Mexico in October, the wonderful Egypt trip in November, and the Christmas markets in Europe in December. So we still have space. Please go find us. And if you have any questions about these trips, please send us a DM or send us an email, and we'll gladly answer all your questions. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend. Feliz Dia de las Madres to all the madres out there. And talk to you soon, Monica. Bye, Peak.